Welcome back to Beyond the Numbers podcast, the show where we unpack real world growth stories with founders who've built resilient businesses in unpredictable times. My guest today is Arnon Melo, founder and president of MELLOHAWK Logistics. Arnon arrived in Canada from rural Brazil with little more than determination, punched the late shift at fast food counters to pay tuition, and 2 decades later is moving cargo for clients on every continent. Along the way, he's chaired National Freight Forwarders Association, won countless awards, and even earned the prestigious Brazil's Order of Rio Branco for all his deeds and involvement to support his roots and, most importantly, the community. Today, we'll explore how he scaled a freight forwarder into a global player without sacrificing culture, why SMEs should build relationships today, and the leadership habits that turn first generation immigrants into first class entrepreneurs. So grab your notebook. This is an hour packed with practical tactics and a dose of inspiration. For us to get started, first of all, welcome and thank you for taking some time out of your day, Arnon. And I know it's not easy to take some time off of your day, but
it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. This is fun.
Thank you. And starting from the very beginning, not just the podcast, but obviously from your story, going all the way back from Toronto in the 90s, coming here in a suitcase to now you operating a freight forwarding company, operating across continents, working with hundreds of agents across nations and being able to serve the community. But I don't know if you ever took the time to actually search your name on ChatGPT or had that time available, but I did. And two words that they described you was a community champion and a supply chain strategist. And I want to take those two words and take us back to yourself, young self in the 90s and still very young. But that first time in Canada, did you ever imagine the point that you are here today? And if you could do a flashback to those first days of coming to Canada, what would that be like talking to your younger self?
Oh my God. It's funny you say those two words because I've Googled myself like before. Google, not ChatGTP, but I would never imagine. It's just it's a dream come true, of course, that came with a lot of work. You know, people think looking now, it's like everything came so easy, right? Yeah. To all of us that are immigrants here. But no, never imagine. When I moved to Canada, I wanted to be fluent in English and basically be independent from my family. That was the reason for moving to Canada. And if I had achieved those two things, I would be like, oh my God, I'm successful. And so I tell everyone, if you're going to be independent financially, and I think that's the first thing you should consider, because then you don't have to answer to anybody, just to yourself. But the road to get here was a fun road. It was a difficult road, of course, but I always talk in my talks about passion. I love what I do and I loved what I study. I went to college in Canada just to take us back. I came here, I had graduated in Brazil. I was a Bachelor of English in Brazil, and then I knew a little bit of English. I came to study French actually and English, and then French never happened. And then I end up in college in Canada, and I studied international business, and I just felt it was important to go to college here and have an education in Canada if I was going to make Canada my home. And the entire process from college was very pleasurable to me. It was not something that, oh my God, I'm dreading this. And math was a little bit, you know what I mean? I had difficulty in math in high school, but so it was easy. And I always believe, if we start talking about career and stuff, that if you have passion, other things are going to fall into your lap. Yeah. You are attracted to things that are good for you or not good for you, but you have to look in a way what gives you pleasure to get out of bed in the morning and go to work. And college gave me that base to start.
Nice. And it's very important. I think even I'm probably close to that age of your younger self coming to Canada at that very point, and I can definitely connect with the point of education. A lot of people, especially my age, especially with all the technology available, they start to devalue the value of education and being able to just have that structure in your life. And a lot of times they do dread going to school and learning. And like you said, it's finding a passion. In grade 11, I had a teacher that said those exact words. He said, if you're going to start a business or be an entrepreneur, it has to be a passion that you have and nothing else. And that takes us to when you founded MELLOHAWK. And I know a bit of a few years in between there, but early 2000s, you got MELLOHAWK. Was that a passion? Because from the 90s, you mentioned your only goal was independence, taking care of family, being able to financially freedom of yourself. Now we're in the early 2000s. What really drove you to take that initiative?
That's a great question. Actually, when I graduated from college, I started as an intern at a German multinational logistics company. So that's where I actually was able to put to practice all the stuff that I learned in college. And college in Canada is great because I'm going to generalize, but everything you learn in college, you actually apply right to your everyday life, which was fantastic. So I entered as an intern at this company, and I was able to grow within this company until I was the air freight manager for this German logistics company in Toronto that I was just starting here. And during that time, I met people that were entrepreneurs, that they had left their work and started their company. And I used to ask them, I said, so how is to have your own company? You know what I mean? I always wanted this. I kind of dreamed about it, but is it difficult? You know, tell me about it. And they all said, well, it's good and bad at the same time, but you never know until you do it, because I cannot describe to you the feelings that I have. And when it came time that I was unhappy for the very first time in a long time with my job and the new president that had took over the company, and I didn't feel valued, I realized, okay, I can't get out of bed and be unhappy. I'm gonna, look for something else. And it took me to actually resign from the company. I didn't find another job. I decided to resign and say, I'm gonna now look for another possibility. And when I told my clients that I was leaving, and that's when they all said, we're going with you. It doesn't matter where you go. And that hit me because I thought, wow, somebody's going to follow me. And that was not the intention to leave to take clients, but why are these people following me? Like, you know what I mean? You don't believe in yourself sometimes, which is normal. You don't feel valued enough. And so starting and resigning and getting the party, the gift, the goodbyes, and you never burn your bridges, right, Matt? You know this. Like, it doesn't matter how horrible you feel, you never mistreat the people that came and helped you to that point. So I left and started the next day working from home. So it was a very single. All these clients, my suppliers helped me. They said, no, we know you. We're going to support you. We're going to give you an account. We're going to help you. And most of those people are with me today after 22 years. And that, to me, that's very important. Like the roots of everything, it's also very important. Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question.
You did, yeah. That's pretty awesome, because a lot of times when people are starting businesses, they focus so much on making money or just being able to scale a business. And the key thing that you said is the business wasn't started because of money or because of supporting, obviously, the cause of the business itself, which is freight forwarding, but it was more the people, the connections, and the relationships you've built over the years. And if you could go back to that start, would you have changed anything at the start of the business?
No, I wouldn't. And it's a great question that I was asked the other day at another interview that I was given. I think everyone has a beginning. So I failed at that time not having a business plan, because I didn't have time to have a business plan. Because when I told people I'm leaving, they said, okay, we're coming with you. And next week I was starting to operate from my house, and I had some money, but I didn't plan that I was going to have a company and do this, but I couldn't let my clients down. So not having a business plan is bad, but at the same time, having a business plan And only having a business plan and never executing a business plan is also bad. Because I see a lot of people, no, I did this plan, but then you never put in practice, or you don't have clients to put in practice. For me, it was the opposite. I had shipments, I had clients, I needed to keep going, and the plans came along, right, with doing the business. And I guess that's bad, but it's also good because I learned a lot from it. I made a lot of mistakes that I won't make today, of course, but no, I wouldn't change. I wouldn't change anything.
Awesome. Great. And I think the key thing too, when it comes to starting businesses, I watched a podcast here recently on Next Level Business.
Yes.
And obviously you ended the podcast with just start and just get your business started. And you mentioned the question about the business plans, and people have so many great ideas, just doesn't execute. But as we know, an idea and execution of one person or a partner in your case can only take you so far in business. So how did you use those first 10 to 12 years of your time in Canada to be able to put that in practice in your firm? As you said, the only really change that happened is unhappiness in your current workplace. So how did you leverage that experience to be able to get MELLOHAWK to where it is today?
Wow, that's a multi-level question. But I think relationships was very important to my partners worldwide. I mean, I knew people all over the world that I made a point of going and meeting them in person because we knew each other from email or a phone call. And I made a point of traveling to Asia, to Europe, to South America and say, this is who I am. And this is what I'm all about and what my company is all about. And I want to build on that. And I think that also made an impression on them to say, wow, you traveled all the way here to meet us. Because some people, they want to save money, they don't want to go anywhere. And they just like, okay, especially now. At that time, the internet was starting, right, in the 90s. So it's not what it is today. So I guess developing these relationships was crucial to grow the company. And of course, I talked many times about this, but when we started, we hired people that I could afford to hire in our company. That's another topic that I think is very important, to support newcomers to Canada, to support college graduates that I graduated from. So I kept going back to my college, to Seneca College, Seneca Polytechnique, Seneca Proud, and hiring people that were graduating from the same program that I was, because I knew that they knew a bit of the business, but I could mold them to my company, to my philosophy. And not many companies would do that. They would try to hire, a top professional, and which is great if you have the money, but I didn't have the money at the time. So I molded these people to work, and I taught them what I knew and my experience, and I think that also changed the dynamic of our company. So we together speak 15 languages. We have from Asia to Brazil to Europe as employees, and they all sort of serve their own community in a way, and we get business from those communities. So I guess that changes the dynamic as well. Especially we are a freight forwarding company, so you are shipping and buying and importing from different countries. So I think it makes sense to have a diverse workforce.
Definitely. Now, going back to the very core of that business, before we get into that first hire, like you said, budgeting for it, deciding who that would be, molding it into long-term relationships in your company. When you first started, how did you manage all the moving parts in freight forwarding, and how did you manage? Was it yourself? Was it with a partner? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah,
inception.
No, in the beginning it was only me, and it was very tough because you invoice somebody, so they would pay you in 20 days or 30 days, but you had to pay a supplier in 15 days, and you're like, cash flow was the biggest problem. I think it is the biggest problem for anybody that starts, doesn't have a business plan, doesn't have a lot of money to inject into the business. And it was always like, oh my God, am I going to have enough money to pay my suppliers and my clients are going to pay me? Thank God I had faithful, trustworthy clients that paid on time, but there was many times that I had to borrow from friends, like, guys, you have 10,000, I'll pay you in 15 days, whatever. And until our bank, of course, at the time we had everything with them, and we were able to get a line of credit and grow that line of credit and then get some other financing. But it took years for that to happen. As you know, financing is not that easy here. People don't trust you. Like, they want to see the numbers, they want to see your income statements, they want to see a bunch of stuff for you in order to grow. I think Canada has a lot of support, but you need to get to a certain point before you ask.
Yeah.
So the beginning was tough. And then, of course, Peter Hawkins, my partner and vice president, so the company he was working for, they closed the Canadian operations, and I said, look, I'm struggling, I need help, you need to come and help me. So he, who knew nothing of logistics, never gone to school for logistics, came to learn from the immigrant, how to do supply chain. And it was fun. Poor Peter, my God, I take my hat to him. And now he's an expert, of course. But so he came and he did the finance, so all the billing and stuff. So he helped me on that so I could focus on operations. And then from there, first employee, second, you kind of grow slowly, very, very conservative, very slowly, because I was always, I had a biggest fear. I still have a biggest fear of hiring somebody, and then like, oh my God, I don't have the business, I'm going to have to let you go. I don't think we've ever done that in 22 years.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And going back to that first hire, so you got yourself wearing many hats, then you get the help of Peter, where he's able to take on that finance, operationally, CFO type hats to push the business forward. You're still the CEO and pushing the business forward. Now, that third hire, taking you two into account, but the first official hire, what did they do in your company to people maybe in that position where they're just wearing many hats and it's time to hire somebody else? Was it based on a need for you or just...
No, the great question. They were hired to do technical, like the operational work, like literally, because I was doing sales, I was talking to the clients, and some clients had some challenges in some countries, so we're trying to find a solution for them. And okay, found a solution. Okay, so now we secured the client. So this person was doing all the bookings, all the documentation. So the operational part, I needed somebody to take that away from me a little bit. I don't do as much of that today, but when I was alone, I was like, that was tough. I was doing ocean, air, trucking alone, and I needed somebody to alleviate that. So it helped. So the first hire was that. And the second as well. So they all did a lot of operations on that aspect.
Now, at the time, obviously, you're hiring somebody on a lower position, but obviously operationally helping you control the business so that you can push the business forward. At this point in time, have you invested in people that are maybe a little bit more experienced in the field to add a different dynamic to your firm? Or do you still stay to your core of finding those students who are graduating, mold them, and obviously diversify your firm that way?
In the very beginning, we kept going back to the college and hiring people from there. And then later on, we end up hiring people that were still newcomers to Canada, because Peter is the only Canadian born in our company. Everybody else is a newcomer to Canada, so we're very proud of that. And it wasn't intentional that way. It just happened. So we're a mini United Nations, I like to say. But later on, I ended up hiring people that had logistics experience in the past, either working in a different country or in Brazil, which is a niche market for us. So they had experience on their own country, but not necessarily from a college in Canada. But they were still not, a mid-level professional, I guess, if you can say, or I'm not hiring a CEO or a CFO to come and work for me. That has never happened. So we always try to train the people that are coming in with that experience, and hopefully they will grow within the company, which has happened. People that entered as an intern became a supervisor, now they're a manager, they're a VP. So we believe in that growth within our company, but you have to prove yourself, of course.
Definitely. And that's great to see, because a lot of times as business owners, we think it's all expertise and experience. And we've seen many companies shift, even large companies like Google, Apple. They barely look at experience, and they look at more of what that person brings, or a degree, or whatever the case is. and just bring value truly to the team from the
But
ground up.
You bring a great point that I need to add to this part of the talk, is that we don't hire only on technical skills.
Yeah.
Okay, for me and for Peter, soft skills are the most important, because we believe that hard skills you can teach somebody. You can send them to training, you send them to a course, whatever. But if you don't have soft skills, if you don't know how to talk to my client, if you don't know how to look at the big picture and understand the client's emotions and situation and how you're going to propose something, it's very hard to teach soft skills to somebody that has no soft skills whatsoever. And we had that experience before, and we learned from the very beginning that, yeah, we made a couple of mistakes along the way. That technical looks so good, we thought, okay, that's great, and it was not a good experience. And so now you need to prove yourself as a soft skill. So I tell every talk that I give, you need to understand where we are in the world today. Like, what do you want for yourself? You know what I mean? So those things are important, and your employer wants to know that in order for you to move forward.
Yeah, definitely. And it's pretty cool that we hire from abroad as well, and obviously newcomers. And when we get obviously that initial interaction, that's a big thing for us too, especially in a service industry and service business. If we can articulate the value that we bring as a firm over to the client, then that's where the turnover happens and too much volatility in the business. So it's interesting to see that different industries still need to stay true. And I think that's an important message too, because a lot of people think that with technology, they can automate things. They can ask GPT to make a resume and sure, it can come out pretty. But if on that interview, you can't articulate yourself, you can't have those soft skills, that's really a make or break point.
Yeah, and I think you touched something very important. When we were a very small company, we're still a small, Peter keeps saying like, we're a small company. I said, no, we're not, we're a mid-size. But because we do so many interesting and big things that we compete with all the major logistics companies, size means nothing, right? So it means in the beginning, I felt from my previous company, and I think I brought from that period that I always put myself in a place of the client. How do I want to be treated as a customer? And my clients, when I was at my first logistics company, they liked the way I treated them. I knew their names, their kids' name, the dogs. I know what they liked, stuff, and they enjoyed that. It was not a hard conversation. It was always an intimate conversation in a way. So we brought that to MELLOHAWK, and we wanted people to feel valued. And for them to feel valued, you need to convey this to your employees. Like this is not a data entry job. It's it's a personal touch. People, the way you talk to them, the way you write an email, the way you say dear, whatever, means a lot to me. And we see that reflection now because we've been in the business for so long with the same clients. That proves a lot that people are not leaving you just for cost, right? Going somewhere else. So personal touch, soft skills, I think it's very, very important, tremendous in any business.
Definitely. And when you start, obviously a lot of businesses, they start a couple owners and they start to scale. And like you said, sometimes we have to be conservative, but at the same time, we need to meet the demand of the clients and the business itself. But a lot of times when we scale and we hire, we forget that the ones that carry those values a lot of times are the founders and the people driving the business forward. So how did you manage to bring those values into every single hire over time while still keeping up with the demands of the clients?
Oh my God, that is a great question. And you're giving me flashbacks of the time that I had to travel somewhere, and my clients not that they wouldn't speak, but they would call me, right? I would be in Europe or in China, and they would pick up the phone and just say, "Hi, Arno, I just want to make sure that our container, is going to arrive on time," and stuff like that. And I kept it took a while to train them or to pass the confidence that they could speak to my ocean freight person, right, or the air freight, and get them to trust somebody else in the company. instead of just talking to me or me answering every operational case that was happening. That there's no formula to that. It's I think it's very, very difficult. You first of all pass the values of the company to your employees, so they know how you talk to your client, right? So they can mimic, I guess I can say mimic the way you operate, and then the client will feel confident with that colleague, that employee, to give you the feedback and confidence that what they're saying is going to happen.
Yeah.
Because if they don't trust you, or you don't pass confidence, it's going to be very difficult. And there was you talking, asking this question. It takes me back to all those moments of so many times I told my client, top client, I'm going to get so-and-so to call you and update you. He goes, no, but I just wanted to hear from you and stuff like that. So it's kind of funny. It's kind of fun.
And I think it's the way that we do business in terms of the client itself, as I find a lot of our North American clients, they can mold into our team a little bit more. But the ones that come from our roots, the South American clients, a lot of them, it's a little bit of a learning curve. And that's what I've helped this business M7 to do as well, is how can we move away from Marcos as being the guy to we now have a team of 20 who they are all, let's call it capable. Mini Marcos, or capable.
Of course.
Just like Marcos, even better. And I tell them they're much better than I am, because I got 20 things going on. They're just focusing on taking care of you. So it's pretty interesting. Now, we're involved in technology now and systems and ERP and managing our business that way. But early on, businesses don't have the cash, the money to have a system, have an SOP, and have videos and have all the training modules in a system where everybody is connected. So early on, how did you manage to still transition that knowledge to your employees, but at the same time not have to invest so much in systems and software?
I think technology, I love technology, always loved. And I can say the people in my team, now they are a par with it. But in the beginning, it was always a struggle to say, we started on using an Excel sheet, right, to do documents because we didn't have any money. And then we went to an online system paying per shipment. And that was really, really helpful. And it was amazing. And then a few years ago, I'm going to say about 9 years ago, we changed to a different system, more encompassing accounting and warehousing and distribution. Everything is connected now. And there was a struggle to migrate to that and bring 20 people on board with it and making suggestions. It was a team effort. I lost a lot of brain cells on that process, but it's so important. I mean, you have to be, without going crazy on technology, I think, because we will never use SAP because it doesn't accommodate my business. Other people need to use SAP, right? So it depends, but I think you can always find a middle ground of technology that's going to service you without costing an arm and a leg. And thank God, with the technology we have today, things are getting cheaper, more on the cloud, online. We work mobile now from anywhere in the world, so we don't need to be in the office. I need staff in my warehouse to pick up cargo and load and do pick and pack and all of that, but I can be anywhere. 90% of my staff can work from home if they want. But I think, thank God that the world today technology is evolving. It's getting cheaper. It's getting better. And I'm not afraid of adapting to that. Some people in my office are afraid, but they're going to have to keep up coming with me and let's go. Let's learn something new. ChatGTP, of course, we use it all the time for making sure that we're writing the right thing or creating charts and ideas. I mean, you don't rely 100%, obviously, but I'm sure everybody uses, so it's helpful.
Yeah, definitely take it with a grain of salt. And I saw you talking in other podcasts. The topic about GPT is it can guide you in a direction, but they're not the experts. And that's where professionals like yourself or myself come into those different areas of businesses to be able to truly drive you to that end goal that you have for your business. And going back, because you touched base on this earlier, I think we're still far away from seeing technology replacing human interaction or
understanding a human need of a client or a struggle, especially in supply chain. Okay, you can do a lot in supply chain with AI, calculating freight, routes, and all of it. But analyzing something dangerous, something that could be a potential loss to your client, I think we're far away from that, of replacing. Not in our office, at least, and maybe not in my lifetime. I don't know, but I think human interaction is needed to solve a lot of issues that we have right now. I think we need to use technology. Don't get me wrong, but to me there is a limitation on where I think we're gonna go in terms of supply chain and technology.
Definitely. I think it can automate many parts, but like you said, that human aspect, but not even just on the aspect of interactions, as I'm sure a lot of pieces can be automated, but it's more on, like you said, the dangerous situations, the gut feelings, is this going the right way, or do we have to pivot? Technology can't do those human interactions with the experience like we can. And that's a big component.
And I don't know with you and your business, but clients want still to talk to you and say, I'm having this issue. You know what I mean? How do I solve this? Or what are your thoughts in what's happening in the world today? What advice can you give me? I think that little talk with your clients goes a long way. And that's where big corporations in logistics or even in your field failed, because they're losing clients. They don't want to have this person interaction. And there is a niche. There are companies that still want to do it, like us and you, and that's the personal touch is important, I think.
Yeah, just this past year, early this year, around Christmas, New Year's time, a big organization in the accounting field actually went bankrupt and got bought out, but other big players as well. But it was somebody that was all AI, 100% AI. And it goes back to the point that you said, a lot of our clients, and we tell the same thing that you tell your employees, this is not data entry. If they want data entry, they can punch it into GPT, technology, Google, whatever the case is. Even the accounting softwares these days can do quite wonderful work on their own and the owner. But it's about that connection and that advice and helping them just stay status quo. In business, you have so many moving parts that you get overwhelmed with a lot of moving parts. And if you have somebody just to keep you on that target that you set at the very start, is really a difference maker.
If in any business you have so many moving parts, imagine in logistics, where you have wars happening in Europe and China being hated by everybody else, and routes of containers being shifted every minute. So how can one single machine, you know what I mean, calculate all of that and still give good advice to a client? I think it's quite impossible. Maybe one day, you never know. But I think today people still need to hear, this is my personal opinion, what's happening, and this is the reality of your container, your air freight is going to be this, because that's what I see in 35 years in Canada, whatever, or 22 with MELLOHAWK. So I think that's still very, very much valued by a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like you said, we can't just be horses with blinders on and going in a straight line and ignoring all these things that's happening around us. Technology can be great, and we have to adapt. Like you said, the office needs to adapt, the team needs to adapt. But things that technology can't do is what Arnon has done, which is community involvement. And that's where I want to shift a little bit of attention to, because you got so many moving parts from your business. You're scaling, like you said, small to mid-size, and you continue to scale.
U.S. office. I forgot to mention, we have a U.S. office, 10 years now in the U.S., which is a big jump, but an important jump for us too. So
yeah, and we expanded that way too, and it's even more moving parts than Canada in our field, and I'm sure in anybody's field going into a country, there's much more. But amidst all of that, you continue to stay involved in the community and volunteer your time. And I just want to know, at what point in your career did that start? Was it from the very early 2000s, or was it something that you just had a moment where you wanted to start giving back?
No, that's a great question. I mean, I always wanted to give back since I moved to Canada, because I felt Canada gave me so much. There was so much support for me here with Peter, of course. But you can't sometimes help your own community if you are surviving, right? So we in the beginning we had no money to sponsor any events because we had no money to even balance our books and pay everybody in the very beginning. So it was much later, maybe I'm gonna say 10 years later, into our company that we were able to. The community grew here. Of course, the Brazilian community is much larger than when I came, and we were able to start getting involved in volunteering, giving my experience, what I went to college here, what I studied, and what people could potentially do with their life, but also volunteering time, donating money to support film festivals or Brazilian events and Brazilian associations here, because I think that's also important, because if you help a group, then that group can help the other group, and you end up growing. And that brought me a lot of joy, of course. I mean, it has been a roller coaster. I mean, I never imagined that I would be involved in amazing and dramatic events that happen in Brazil and here. And I'm glad that I was involved, surrounded by people that helped me and heard my calling and said, I need you. And they came, people that I don't even knew about existed. So I think that's very important. When you put yourself out there, other people will say, oh, he's doing it. Okay, I'm going to help. But if you don't start, if you don't take the initiative, it's very hard to just sit back and I hope somebody would do it. So I don't know.
Now, if we take yourself back to that moment where you were able to start giving back and getting involved, and I know you've held quite a few positions in organizations and even got awarded in Brazil as well for all the deeds you've done. What was your first starting point? Was it a networking event? Was it just connecting back to your college where you got so much value from? What was the first step for you?
All of those things. I think college was certainly the first one, because I love the college I went to, and I sit on a board of directors at Seneca. The PAC program is an advisory board to better the curriculum of international business. And then participating in networking events. It doesn't matter if it's in your own culture or any culture. You have to, if you're in business, you want to sell your business, you need to network, you need to participate, you need to shake hands and tell people in 2 seconds what you do and what your company does. That's how you're going to promote yourself. Networking all the way, always. And that always paid back. Every investment we've ever made in networking paid back to this day. I mean, I'm doing networking here with you, right? Yeah. So we're talking about our companies, and in hope somebody will say, "Wow, I learned something," and maybe we'll use you or me, right, in this journey. But the awards and the recognition for volunteer work, it was something completely unexpected. I never imagined that we get to that point, and I hope I inspired other people to continue to do it when I'm not here doing it. So hopefully other people will do it, not for the awards, but for helping our own community grow in Canada, which is very big already.
Yeah, and I think we're operating at a time where economically we are tightening up and people are looking to be very resourceful and be very conservative in many times. And I think this is a time where those that have the ability, like you said, if you're surviving, if you're just trying to get through cash flow, payroll, getting your business up and running, might not be the right time. But obviously, if you are in a position, now is the time to be able to help your communities, help the people around you, be able to share your knowledge and expertise as much as possible to just be able to bring everybody through these times that we're in.
Yeah, because volunteering, you don't need to donate cash. You can donate your time. You can donate your experience. You go to a networking event and you meet somebody and you tell them about your story, and it's like, wow, I didn't know that, and I learned something new. So many examples I have of people that didn't give $1 but helped somebody else because they learned from their experience. So giving could be in many, many forms. Listening, it's a way of giving. So yeah, just put yourself out there for sure.
Yeah. And just yesterday I was at an event back at my elementary school. So 10 years back, and it's something that I go back every single year. And I think it goes back to your point of You said in different podcasts, people connect with people. And a speech from a valedictorian yesterday was, people change people. So hearing that phrase and looking back in your 22 years, going to be 23 in the fall of your business, how do you find that has impacted your business, whether internally or externally?
Tremendous impact. I mean, I I have this thing on Instagram that I started saying hello MELLOHAWKers, right? Because I created this. It was a joke, and it became this thing that everywhere I go now, people see me and they welcome me with that phrase. So when either volunteering or doing something spontaneously, you do have an impact on people. So all the volunteering that we do, it is a volunteering process, but behind the volunteering, there is Arno, there is Peter from MELLOHAWK Logistics. So I am Brazilian, he's Canadian. We go back to our roots, and I think that brings value as well. Other businesses value the fact that you have that beginning, right, of a newcomer, an immigrant, that you struggled and you got here. It shows that, wow, you stuck to it and you made it. So I think all those actions construct who you are today for me, and in 10 years from now, I'll get better perhaps with the experiences that I gained. But all those moments are so important to define who you are as a human being. I think for me, it's crucial.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something that M7 even wants to start doing too, is involvement. And part of this is being able to just give back of all the years that we've been in business, but also all the clients we've helped, the stories we've had the privilege to be a part of. And I think that goes a long way for everybody.
We forget the things we have done. Actually, we cannot forget, but we do forget, like the day-to-day, the craziness of every day. And then all of a sudden, like talks like this takes me back to memories and moments that I forgot, not because I wanted to forget, because I'm so busy. But we should always remember where we came from and the things that we know, and give value to the things that we know. And that's why we're here, to share those knowledge. And I think M7 is the same thing. You guys teach everybody about accounting, about the possibilities, about this world that is, to me, is like, my God, so complex. And I think everybody that listens to your podcast will learn something new completely. And it's a way to give back, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like you mentioned in other podcasts, when people start a business, launch a product, launch a service, mainly products, freight forwarding is typically the last thing they think about. And it should be something that they typically think at the start. And I think we experience the same thing of people focus so much on that service, that product, launching that business. And then a year goes by and, oh, shoot, taxes are coming up. And what are taxes? And my books are a mess. And now I'm a mess. And now you're wasting more time doing that. So for people getting themselves started, how do they typically get started with somebody like yourself when it comes to freight forwarding, or just getting the logistics worked out with yourself?
I'm so glad you mentioned this, because it is every talk that we do in a company starting a new project. They think of everything else, but they don't think about supply chain. It's like, how you're going to get your product there. So I think you need to look at the big picture first, and then go and say, okay, how do I move this? And in Canada, of course, we're blessed. There is an association called CIFA, called today CIFA Corp. It used to be CIFA, the Canadian International Freight Forwarders Association, which I was happy to be the president for 2 years. I just left that position. It was a volunteer position, and such an honor to represent this 75-year-old organization. And what they do is they offer membership to over 500 logistics. I'm going to call logistics companies now, because we have 5 new categories. And if somebody is buying or selling internationally and they need a freight forwarder, they need a customs broker, they need a warehouse operator, they can go to CIFA and they will have a list of approved companies that have insurance, they have training, they have staff, they know what they're doing. So that gives confidence as well. And you need to absolutely check and compare prices with all of them, because we all shop at the same ocean carriers, airlines, trucking companies, but it's how you you click with those companies, that's going to define who you're going to use. Of course, prices might vary here and there, but we're not talking huge amounts. But having an association in Canada, which Brazil, for example, does not have an association like that, it helps a lot us in our industry and our businesses. I mean, not you because you're not involved in logistics, but some of your clients buying products from another country might need help and they don't know where to look for somebody like us. And so we have that. So I think planning, asking questions, understanding your business is crucial anywhere.
Definitely. And I think just to reinforce the point you mentioned, it's yes, there's going to be different prices, there's going to be different providers, but it's who can you build a relationship with long term so that you can scale your business along their side, because somebody like freight forwarding is going to be from that very first shipment to hundreds and millions down the line as well.
I was having a meeting this morning with a new client and he said, I would like to have one company look after the entire process. And that makes a lot of sense, because if you have one company that sees from point A to point B, they can be the logistics provider, they can be the customs broker, they can be the warehouse, the delivery. You know where your shipment is at all times. When you're dealing with 3 or 4 people in the same chain or same aspects of this chain, it's time consuming. Yeah. So when you put all that time that you wasted, I'm going to call wasted. I got to call this guy now. I got to call this guy. No, where's the shipment? When's going? You could be focusing on something else. So if you focus in one company and develop a relationship, I think the benefits are endless.
Definitely. And when it comes to obviously being that one company, tell us a little bit about MELLOHAWK, and is that something that you provide from start to finish for a company, or is there things that maybe other people can specialize in or that you work alongside to achieve the end result?
You mean about the movement of goods? Yes. So MELLOHAWK is a full pledged logistics company. So we move cargo from point A to point B, depending on the Incoterms. If you don't know what Incoterms is, you need to learn if you're international business. 11 terms that determine the transfer of risk and cost on the movement. And based on that, basically, who is paying for the freight controls the shipment. And they're going to choose a logistics company to observe and quote and do the documents from the point of origin to the point of destination. So, so very important to, and also it doesn't cost anything for you to talk to us or talk to a company like us or a customs broker. You basically can have an initial consultation and say, look, I'm planning to do this. What do you think? And then if you actually have a quote, and this quote is very complex and many calculations, then some people might charge you to do an analysis of tariffs and duties and whatever it is that you're importing in different countries or exporting. But generally, you start with a conversation and that conversation is free. And then you build on that. And normally shipments are quoted on a per shipment basis. So it's not like a flat fee for everything that we do for you. You do that shipment, great. You don't have another shipment, you don't have another shipment. So hopefully you're going to have lots of shipments and you're going to call us over and over again. But it's about a specific service that you're being offered and quoted.
Awesome. Now, a lot of podcasts, and the one you were just previously asked you to end it with, give us an advice. And I don't need to do that because you give a lot of advice. And if anybody searches up yourself or your company, they're going to get a lot of value, a lot of content, your podcast on Spotify as well. They can listen in and get the ins and outs of your...
How we started it, yeah. So this whole story is there, and some funny stories that Peter and I tried to... During COVID, we did this podcast. We need to continue. But telling little funny and tragic stories of our clients, mistakes that they made along the way, and people seem to like it. It's very short, so...
Yeah, so a lot of value out there, but a question that I saw Hormozy been asked, Alex Hormozy, a big entrepreneur of acquisition.com, is if everything disappeared tomorrow, the ChatGPTs, the internet, the MELLOHAWK, all the stories of what Arnon has accomplished in the last 35 plus years in Canada or 22 plus years in business, what would be your piece of information or guidance that you can give to new entrepreneurs or anybody that's just looking to take themselves or their business to the next level?
Wow, that is a complex story. I think not to fear the unknown. For years, I was in fear of, should I start my company? Am I going to survive? Going back to college, when I was accepted at college, am I going to be able to understand the teacher in front of the class? All these fears were blocking me from my full potential. The moment I overcame the first fear, which was college, not being arrogant, I don't think I am. For me, everything is possible. Everything is possible. And fear is just the arrival of that moment, and then from then on you see like, oh, this is it, and you move on. So try to overcome this initial fear, and planning is important, but I think executing it, then my second advice, execute it first. See how it feels, how it goes, how the reaction is, and build on your planning. Because if you stay behind the desk just planning, it's all on your head. It's not there in the world. And I think being in the world is more important than anything else for me.
That's awesome. And I had that same conversation with an employee this week as well. And they're pretty young and close to my age. And when they initially got into the company, ambitious, optimistic, I want to get to where you are. I want to be in the position that you are in today. And this week, they come to me and says, I don't think I'm capable of taking care of this client. They're a little bit above my wheelhouse. And my response was exactly that, is don't fear the unknown, but it's also the people that make it to the finish line or take that next step is not because they knew what step to take, is they just took the initiative of taking that next step. And like you said, you get to the next step, you're like, oh, this was it. And then you just keep going.
No, I love that example because it's so true. So many times we're like, no, I'm not going to do it. Why? Like you didn't even experience it, right? Because of fear. So try to overcome. It's not easy. Believe me, it took me years to be able to say this because in the very beginning it was very scary. And to many of you watching, it could be still scary, but hey, we live in the best country in the world. I still believe that. Many opportunities here. Just take the first step.
Definitely. Now, how can everybody get in touch with Arnon, with MELLOHAWK, with your company? Tell us a little bit of how they can get in touch, or
Perfect.
even your network of content.
Well, MELLOHAWK.com. We're also on Instagram. We're very active on our Instagram account. So MELLOHAWK_logistics on Instagram. Arnon Melo on Instagram as well. I put a lot of stuff there, personal and the business. I try to teach people what I do, and I think it's important. Something that I believe, it's not just telling the client, I'll do it for you. No, we're going to do it together. I'm going to show you. I'm going to tell you the process, and I like to share that process. And that's about it. Those are or info@mellohawk.com if you want to email us. That's it.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Arnon, for the pleasure of having about an hour of your day.
God, it was I thank you. It was so much fun. Congratulations to M7, all these years in business, you and your dad and your mom and everyone in this company. And thank you for this podcast. Amazing. Thank you.
Awesome.